Hey, this is JT, and welcome to the Clash of Creators Season 2 reunion, where we're going to revisit our game of Subterfuge that ended about 2 months ago. And so with time comes perspective, and we're going to talk about the events of the game that lasted 12 days. Well, for most of us. So on the line with us is Gary from Late to the Table.
Hey, guys. Yeah,
Chris.
Yeah.
We got Chris from Blue Cube Games, a name that everybody kept slaughtering in their diaries.
Including just now, it's board games, not games.
And Rich from Meeple's Academy, who will hopefully have a video out by the time this launches.
Yeah, right? I hope so.
Christie,
the only content creator who this is the only content I've created so far.
And Christie from Peace, Love, and Games.
Hi.
We've got General Uptonpikmin from Semi-Co-op joining us.
Good evening.
Admiral.
Admiral, yes.
Admiral Uptonpikmin. I'm really just slaughtering this. We have Leland over here from the T-HUD podcast. T-HUD? Reppin'? All right.
You guys nailed that.
All right. We got myself, JT, from G Club. And then our winner, you know him best from his role as Pep from Watch It Played, or for filling up his Infinity Gauntlet with the souls of his captured specialists,
Yes.
Pep McDonald.
Hey.
All right. So, in the beginning here, let's just start it off. What was your strategy going in, and what would you have done differently? And we're going to start with Gary, because everybody's wondering, what were you thinking going into this game?
I wasn't thinking much at all, to be honest. Everyone else was talking, it seemed like, before the game started. I saved all my talking for when the game started. So I think that was my biggest flaw. So, and then when the game started, I was just like, okay, let me just try talking to like 2 people nearby me and seeing if I could ally with them. So that was going to be Plumpy. And it was going to eventually be Chris from Blue Cube, but then just chaos ensued way before I could even do anything. And then Pep just started invading me, and I was just like, okay, well, I have this problem to deal with now. Great. So, yeah, that was and then not only that, I guess I was a little bit too greedy when I was trying to get both of my factories next to me, and I didn't want Pep to have any of them. I was like, no, I want both of them. You can't have just one. I want both. I think that was what set me off for an instant downfall, pretty much.
So Pep, you and Gary like went right at it from the get-go. And so what was kind of your reaction to some of the communication? Because you kind of went like, yeah, this is, I guess this is his.
Yeah, he summed it up pretty well there. Essentially from the start, I did the same thing. I wanted to reach out to everyone, and I did wait until the game like started, as in the 4-hour window you get before the game started.
Oh, I didn't.
I messaged. Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. Because I messaged everyone around me. I messaged Steele. I messaged Uptonpikmin. I messaged who else was beside me?
Justin,
who isn't here. But yeah, I messaged all of them and said, like, you know, I'll give you this and you give me this. And generally, I don't know if everyone remembers, I usually gave more than I took. Like, I was like, take these 2, I'll take this one. I mean, I was manipulating a little. Like, I was saying, take this one, even though it was closer to you than it was to me. But still, I was trying to be fair with it. And yeah, I reached out to Gary, and I'm like, here, I'll have this, and you have these 2. And he's like, no, I want both these factories. And I said something back, but he didn't reply for 2 hours. And at that point, in my head, I was just like, the game is going to start, and he's going to do something, and I'm not going to be able, like, he's going to do something, and if I'm peaceful, I'm going to have to say, okay, sure, you can keep them. And I'm like, I didn't want to do that. I knew I needed the factories too. So I said, listen, if you're not going to respond to me, I'm going to take both of them, and then we'll sort it out afterwards. And there was no sorting it out. The rest of the next 3 days was just me and him smashing back and forth in like the same 2 or 3 locations. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, the worst part about that was that I was asleep, because I sleep. We started the game in the middle of the day, and I was asleep during the day because I work nights. So me not responding to him for 2 hours was just me asleep. Just like, and then I woke up and I was just like, oh, great. This is perfect.
Yeah. The joy of time zones. Mm-hmm. Well, and different shifts. I used to work a night shift, so I completely understand.
Yeah.
So then, Chris, you jump into the mix, right? And you and Plumpy start going after Gary.
Well, I made the mistake of trying to be friends with everyone, and that ended up being what ruined me, I think. But Gary didn't respond, so he really painted a target on his back to be the only person I attacked.
Wait, you sent me a message?
Yeah.
Still hasn't gotten them all.
I was friends with everyone else. You were the only person I could attack without breaking an alliance.
He just got it now. He just got the message now.
Right.
It's that time zone difference.
Months later.
So Chris, you were coming in. What was your strategy coming in?
My strategy was to be friends with everyone and go for a military victory and not even try to build a mine.
Oh, just pure annihilation?
Pure annihilation, and I was close. Oh, I was close.
Yeah, you definitely had that ramping up there towards the, I guess, probably day 9, day 10. You were just steamrolling.
You see
That's the problem. I got too big,
though, right?
and then you all figured it out.
Yeah.
You're too threatening. Too threatening is what it was.
I was trying to be nice and not attack anyone.
But you wanted a military victory by not attacking it.
Well, it's going to happen very fast.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Right.
There was one mess between me and Chris. I'm just noticing. I said one thing. he said, "Hello, neighbor. Any problems with me taking Rand and Gabler?" And I was like, "I can't do crap about that." And then he was just like, "Okay." That was the entire conversation we had in the entire game.
That's great.
So, all right. So in the first couple of days, we also had another fight that came on between Steel and Meeple's Academy and somebody by the name of JT, and it was this team up between me and Steel that just decided to come in and start pounding on Rich over here. And the funny thing is that we both picked a factory to go after. Rich completely empties one of his factories.
Yep.
And starts going after Steel like a madman. And so I just walked in and found nobody there at the factory, whistling in the dark, and Steel's over there just getting pounded. So talk me through this one, Steel.
Oh, okay. So that particular factory that I first launched on, I think, Rich, you and I had previously spoken a little bit about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, right. So I think we had, ran over possibly... I could maybe make it look like I'm attacking there to garner favor with JT possibly. But then I kind of just launched on it without saying anything to you.
Mm-hmm.
As JT, you were like, hey, let's coordinate an attack on Meeple. So I was like, okay, great. Maybe I can, we've already spoke about this with Rich, so I can get Wallace and then maybe JT and Rich will fight. But that's not what happened, obviously.
No, because we had talked. I said you can have Wallace, and then he said, "Well, I don't need it right now." And I said, "Okay, well then I'll take it, but when you want it back, just let me know." So my understanding was, and we did talk about like if you want to make it look like you're attacking me, then we'll play that up. But when he just didn't communicate to me, then the trust just immediately eroded, and I'm like, okay, I'm the third man out of this in this triangle, so. At that point, I was like, okay, well, then I can't trust you, and we're going to war. Because our spots were really close together right there. So
They were, and I think both of us, at least I did, I had like probably 60 to 70% of my drillers on that border.
Mm-hmm.
But that's mainly because my setup, that's where all my factories were. And all my territories up north were just generators. So I had to like funnel them up north. I had to move them all over the place. It was not good.
Yeah, and for me, it was the opposite. That's where most of my generators were. And so that fight only lasted a day or two until we realized, okay, we're just trading spaces and just slamming people into each other. Can we finally have peace? The funny thing is we made peace right after I made a public peace offering to you, and you're like, never! And then behind the scenes, we were like, we're not getting anywhere, so we might as well.
Yeah.
My thinking of that was I was never going to approach you for peace. I'm stubborn enough where I will take the losses. I will sacrifice my drillers, but I would never ask for peace.
Yeah,
I could accept an offer, but I'll never ask for it.
Right, makes sense. And also you thought you were sorry, JT. Also, you thought at that point because of that war, you thought you were like decimated and out.
I did. Like if you had, I was convinced that if you had kept pushing, like I would have been out of the game. I wouldn't have been able to rally anything. And it was like day 3 or whatever. Like, yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
That's ironic because you were a pretty strong contender for first place coming on the last day.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Chris's giant force of like 700 drillers,
I was trying to get to 7th
moving
place.
down and taking one of my mines, it would have been really close. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Christie, what was your strategy kind of coming into this?
I had no strategy. There was no generators within view for me to take. It was all factories. So I didn't think... I felt like there wasn't a lot of chance for me to do anything from the beginning, so I was just going to see how things rolled and hopefully make some alliances so that I could do something in the future.
Okay.
So how did generators work again? I actually never understood that the entire time we were playing until my factory didn't work anymore, and I was like, oh.
Generators set your limit of drillers you can make. Factories set your speed of how fast you make drillers.
Yep.
Actually.
Yep. So, Admiral Uptonpikmin, you seem to kind of take that pacifist approach in the beginning. Was that pure strategy here, or was that just how you were deciding to start off and then you were going to switch things up?
I after that practice game, Pep said I approached this as a role-playing game. So we decided, like, okay, let's come up with a character and just play that out till the end. So we decided on this very, like, poor propaganda-driven admiral. So at the beginning it was like, oh, everybody's friends, we are so great. And then as soon as I sort of got into a stalemate with everybody, it's like, okay, I need to do something because otherwise these are going to be terribly boring broadcasts. So I picked the worst betrayal ever.
Oh, that makes so much sense now, because there was a point where I was just like, how is Pep fighting me so much over here? And Heinz can't just attack him because there's no way Pep had that many submarines everywhere. And then
almost all of my stuff was on your borders. I kept like a 10 to 15 around everywhere else, and then I just kept everything coming at you because everyone else made allies with me, and I was in I think honestly I started the game in a really strong position because there was a big like empty gap in the middle of my things, and so it was really hard to get. It was hard for me to move my things around, but I think it would have been hard for somebody to come in and take all of my stuff in one sweep.
Oh,
they would have had to slow roll through almost like a snake chain.
Yeah.
I messaged Pikmin about that. I was like, hey, like, attack Pep. And he was just like, no.
No, because what Pep said, you really had to keep pushing. There's not like a grab a single thing and you're okay. It was just this complete border that I needed to maintain.
Yeah. And after taking those 2 factories you wanted, Gary, I was producing a lot of drillers in just the right areas, too.
Yeah, if he was taking over generators, then I would have been in a much better position. But yeah, that was a killer. And it was like right next to my queen, too. That sucked.
Yeah, I think there was one point in one of Gary's diaries where I thought he was actually tearing up because of how much he wanted Admiral Pikmin to come help out. So
sorry, Gary.
I'll take my Oscar or Nobel. No, not Nobel Prize.
I don't think you're going to get a Nobel Peace Prize for.
No, you're not getting the Peace Prize.
Yeah.
I have to say though, it was really great that we had that war at the start, because when I did start the game, I kind of almost like what Chris went with was the idea that I was going to try to just get as much territory with alliances early as possible, and then just try to grow, and then wait until somebody became an aggressor so I could help them against that one person. And you became an aggressor very quick. And so even though I did very lightly try to lead us towards peace, like a little bit more sided towards me.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed the fact that we were taking you on. And I do feel bad because I messaged Plumpy and Blue Cube at one point and said, like, you know, hey, how do you feel about just dividing up late to the tables territory here? And then I went to bed, and when I woke up, I think it was Blue Cube that messaged me and said, like, yeah, we're going in and doing stuff now. And I was like, I was just kind of trying to sow the seeds of dissent a little. I didn't think they were going to move on it so fast.
Well, like I said, I had nothing else to do. I was trapped at that point, so I had to attack someone, and that seemed like the best option. Yeah,
we worked off each other a little. I think we both wanted to just stay there and maybe attack one person, and we both had the same person to attack. So
I love how the first sign of aggression from Chris was you both actually going to the exact same spot and attacking each other. Actually,
that was an accident. That was.
Yeah, we couldn't see each other.
Yeah. I loved the last video that we had, because this is being filmed in between the diaries. But I love the last one where you had said that they must not be working together because they attacked the same place. It's just perfect.
I really had no idea of anything that was going on that entire time. Everyone else seemed to have like a piece, and I was just like, what's I guess I'm going to go try going over here this round, I guess.
I couldn't see Gary or Pep on my radar at all the entire game. But what was hilarious were all of the side messages of what was going on over there. And it was really one of the great early stories in the game that Gary was the aggressor, like Pep said, and yet Gary seemed to not know what was going on and how to even do this or do that. You know, it's like, I'm like, it's a bummer. He doesn't actually know how to play.
Yeah. I remember at one point early on, I sent a group message to everyone but Gary, and I was like, listen, Gary's being kind of aggressive, and I don't want to destroy him, but, like, should I hold back? What's going on? Like, is there a reason why he maybe wouldn't be communicating? And, yeah, it seemed like you knew sort of what was going on, so nobody really said, like, no, don't destroy him. It's like he's just learning or something. So
the best thing to come out of that, too, was during the diaries when Christie sends me these videos of her walking. And I'm like, I'm watching these videos going, did she mess up or something and was like walking and had the camera going or something and just didn't realize it? And then finally I got to the last one and I cracked up, you know, because it was the same question everybody was asking on channel. What is going on with Gary? Like, why? Does he not realize, like, he's cornered himself and it's just everyone's got free reign? And then on the flip side, then all of a sudden, like, Plumpy decides to start shipping drillers to Gary and says, here you go, Gary, have something for you and go ahead and go after it. And then I think, Chris, you picked up on it, right? And you started feeding that information over?
No, I don't think I saw that. Plumpy was trying to get me to start a war with Upton, and that seemed suspicious. Oh, really? And then someone mentioned that Plumpy was maybe lying. I was like, oh, well, Plumpy has to go. And that was the second person. And that's what set off the war between Meeple's Academy, Semi-Co-op, and me, which, you know, I had a lot more drillers than both of them, so they stopped quick.
Yes.
Yeah, the retaliation for that was pretty brutal, as we expected. But I mean, that was one of the other little storylines. It was that Blue Cube and Plumpy and I had made this 3-way truce.
That was like the first truce of the game for me, anyway.
And I want to clarify, because when I play games like this, a truce, I see a truce as a distinction from an alliance. I had an alliance with Semi-Co-op, or at least I thought I did. It seems that way. And then we had this 3-way truce with Blue Cube and Plumpy. And then when you attacked him, I felt like, okay, that you've broken the 3-way truce, so that frees me up. That I'm not betraying you by attacking you. I'm coming to the defense of one of my, not allies, but one of my friends. And, you know, it made an easy choice. Plus, Semi-Co-op and I were talking about, like, we both really want Serenity. If he makes a move, let's go.
Serenity,
you know?
Serenity was a big deal.
Serenity was a big deal, yeah. It's I think the only station name I still remember, because everything just seemed to be happening around Serenity the whole game for me.
Yeah. And I think partially because you put a mine right down next to it, and I wanted to put a mine right next to you, and that was part of our original, the start of our alliance. With back-to-back mines will defend each other's backs, and I thought if we could get Blue Cube in on a 3-way alliance and have him put a mine there at Serenity, that would be great. And he was like, I'm not interested in building mines. And then we were like, oh, okay. Well, then one of us wants it because we want a mine there. And then that's why it became a bit of a focus for us.
Well, I love how with Rich and with Admiral Pikmin here, they decided to build mines back to back and start a friendship camp. And you
built a fire, we sang some songs.
Exactly, you know, and it was amazing. So tell us about that bromance.
I think I was the first to build a mine.
Yes. Yep.
I'm not completely and
that was bold.
It was.
It was, yeah. But I think it was also me thinking I could free up some driller production because I was kind of stuck. So it's like, okay, I'll build a mine and get some more drillers up on that. And then when Rich, I think you proposed, like, can I build my mine next to you? It felt like a really good mutual assured destruction scenario. Like, okay, now we're just tied to each other forever.
Well, and when you built your mine, I sent you a message and said, oh, you're building a mine there? That's pretty bold. Are you, and you sold it to me as, yes, it's an act of trust that I'm building it so close to you. And I bought into that. I was like, I made border truces with all of my neighbors, but I was looking for one to stand out so I could make one true alliance in the game. And then that became you when that trust was built. I'm like, I'm all in, let's do this. Either you or me are winning. And if you're ahead of me, then I'm going to help you win. Either one of us is going to win this game. And that's how I was approaching the beginning of the game. And when I built my mine there, I was like, this is going to work. Yeah.
So, except for Pep exists.
So, just to be clear, it wasn't my intention to betray you from the start. It was just a few days. I was in a slump. I was like, okay, I have to do something spectacular now because otherwise I'm just going to bore myself to death during these diaries.
No, I absolutely understood. It was a circumstantial thing. It was great.
So let's talk about paranoia and sleep. Okay. You all haven't seen what happens after day 3. About day 5 or so, because I've gone through some of these diaries before you guys. There becomes this point where like the beards are getting thicker, the hair is just not getting combed or washed or something, and people are just like not getting sleep. I think I saw, Pep, you had like alarms set in the middle of the night so you could pop up and wake up and things like that. So we'll start off with Christie. How was your level of paranoia and sleep during the game?
This game actually, it wasn't as bad as our earlier game. It's simply because there was less for me that I felt I could do during this game. There was so much going on around me. It was mass chaos, and I felt a lot safer. Maybe I wanted to feel safer because there were still nightmares from the previous game. But so it wasn't. I still woke up like every couple hours to make sure something wasn't happening, and I still had those panics in the middle of the night. But I also had a really bad cold, so I had cold medicine and everything. So maybe that helped.
All right. Anybody else? Paranoia. Steel, how about you?
I think I was okay because I pretty much knew who my enemies were. I mean, like the spat with Rich, and then pretty soon after that, Justin from Chit Talks was attacking me. So I'm like, okay, well, and then I got these two guys that I'm fighting right now, or trying not to fight. And then JT, I don't know, you and I were kind of truce, I guess, right? And then there was Pep just feeding misinformation to me all, every second day. So it's
that's not true.
Yeah. So that's basically, and those are the people that were around me, and I didn't really interact with any other people because I just wasn't in the vicinity of them. So I think I also stopped caring after like day 6. So it was like, oh, okay, I'll check in, a couple times a day. Let's see what's going on. But
yeah, that was evident there. And still, you were my only ally really that I actually had any kind of trust in. And it was funny to watch your diaries as you're like, yeah, JT's, coordinating this whole thing to get Meeples just to railroad me. And I'm like, I just,
man, if you were, oh, jeez.
But
you did real good because it worked.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with that. As much as I'd love to say that I took advantage of that, you were actually the only person I was like, all right, let's do this. And I remember, I think, I forget who was messaging me, if it was Chris or if it was Rich, but one of you was messaging me, you've got to do something about Steel. He's going to win the game if you don't do something. And I'm like, no, Steel's not the one I'm worried about. It's Pep I'm worried about. He's the one that's going to take this thing over. And so from my point of view, the paranoia was around how much is Pep going to take over when he started attacking everyone started attacking Blue Cube, right? Mm-hmm. And so I jumped in to actually attack you, Chris, not out of paranoia, but because I knew that I had to do something, otherwise Pep was going to take over more territory, and I wasn't going to be able to stop him. So my move on Chris was actually a move against Pep. So
right, that totally makes sense because like near the end of the game, when Pep and I were neck and neck, I had to betray you, JT, and I had to take that mine that was right on our border because I couldn't do anything directly to Pep to slow him down. I had to do stuff to other people to up my game, right? And like at the end, I was scrambling to get any territories I could because that boosts your Neptunium production as well with the number of outposts you control, and that was like all I could do to keep up.
Yep, and I knew that mine was going to be taken. I wasn't surprised by it.
You left it empty like the whole game.
Yeah, I left it empty the whole game, and the problem was for me is I actually at one point had my guys in position to protect it, and then as soon as I moved it out of the way, that's when you struck. And
yes, that's right, because you had like to the north and south of that mine, you had enough drillers to make another mine in either one of those locations, or to swoop right in and take the mine back from me, which would have taken me right out of the running, taken away all my Neptunium.
Right.
Which is ended up what happened with when Chris swooped like south, just streaked a line across the map towards that mine, and knocked me right out and basically secured the win for Pat pretty much.
So
that was my best chance at vengeance.
Yeah.
The paranoia was interesting for me because, for the large part, mostly because what I talked about before, the way my stuff was spread out, I didn't feel like anyone was going to declare attack against me because by the time they took one thing, like I would already have stuff moving towards the second thing. There was just too much space between everything. The only thing people could really take easily from me was the stuff that I would take from somebody else. And so I generally wasn't being aggressive most of the game, so I wasn't too worried. But most of the paranoia actually came around Justin. And it's a shame Justin isn't here for this. Okay. But I'll kind of talk a little bit on Justin's behalf about this. At one point, Justin messaged me, and from the sounds of it, it sounds like he was lying from what I hear from JT and Steel. But apparently JT and Steel are teamed up against him and trying to like crush him, kind of like what happened to Gary. And that's what he told me.
Wow.
And I had been in alliance with Justin from the start, and everything had been super peaceful. So when I heard that, I said, "Listen, I don't have anything going on with JT. So if I can reach JT, I'll help you. But I'm not going to attack Steel because I'm also in an alliance with Steel. But I also won't help. I won't help Steel either. You know what I mean? Like if I'm in an alliance with both people, I won't help either of them hurt the other one. I just won't do anything." Which I guess makes me a bad ally, but whatever.
Yeah, that does. The funny garbage ally. It's like there's no reason to talk to you.
The funny thing about the situation with Justin is he had like 3 factories sitting around one of my factories. Yeah. And he had like 30 or 40 guys in each of them, and it was growing. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not in an alliance with him. So I had like 70 drillers in there. And then he starts messaging me, seems a little aggressive over on my side of the aisle over here. I'm like, yeah, I almost have as much in that one factory as you have in all 3 of them that are surrounding my factory.
Oh, right.
And he was, and it was funny because I got the impression that everybody was like getting message from Justin and that he was trying to get everybody to come and attack me. And I just kind of sat back and I watched everybody going, that's kind of shady. And then everybody starts turning on him, and I just kind of sat back and went, okay. So, I wish Justin was here. He wasn't able to make it last minute, because I'd love to hear his side on this one. Because man, that was.
Pretty sure he was just sowing chaos.
Yeah.
Well, I must have been the only one he didn't message about that then, because like I didn't have any communication with him outside of the very beginning of the game, like divvying up territories.
Yeah.
And then I guess that's maybe why he chose me as a target. Like I was convinced though that he and you, Rich, were in cahoots as you and I were battling, because to draw my attention away from our border, because he had a pretty good force, like, and he could have walked right in if I hadn't started reinforcing. So like I was convinced that you two were like working together somehow. But
that's really interesting, because as we've said, at this point we haven't seen everyone's diaries. We're at about day 2 or 3 of having viewed everybody else's diaries. So I did not talk to Justin the entire game. I maybe had 1 or 2 little messages with him, like, hey, how's it going, just so I could say I talked to him and see if there was some, because he was so far away. Pardon me. Like Gary and Pep, he was so far away from me on the map. I was maybe like, hey, do you want to work to smush someone in between us? But I mean, I was thinking that, but there was really nothing that either of us could do at that point. We weren't, at least from my standpoint, I wasn't in a position to. So no, I didn't ally with him at all.
That's
for like the communication was minimal.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, the whole situation was just one black screen. Like, there's things apparently happening, but I have no idea.
Yeah, it's very interesting hearing about all of it now after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, the poor guy though. In my, I think in one of my diaries, I called Justin my Moby Dick, and I was like, I don't care if I win this game. After that, I'm just going to make sure it's pure annihilation. I'm going to wipe him off the screen. And and that was my one, Captain Ahab moment, and just went after it. And I was like, okay, that was done now. I feel better. Now what do I do? And
ironically, he was like my whale too, because again, I don't know if any of you knew this, but so after he declared that everyone was attacking him, I said, well, listen, I just finished destroying Gary, and I felt bad about it. You'll see later in the diaries that there's a sad moment. But I said, listen, I have these forces. I have nothing to do with them, and it looks like you're going to die anyway. I recently got a hypnotist. How about I come down and I take your specialist? And he said very fairly, I'm not going to give them to you because that's too much power. But why don't you try to come and take them, and I'll give you a challenge. And like we said it friendly, it wasn't a declaration of war. It was a challenge. Can you get them before the other two do? And so I did. I went in, and that's where all the stress in the game came. I spent I think 2 to 3 straight days of video diaries of me just doing these calculations. Like if I put this here and here and here, and this comes in here, I can take this before this can go there. And I just so much effort into something that had nothing to do with war or conflict. It was basically like someone handed me a puzzle in the middle of the game and said, can you do this?
I swear at one point I was waiting, Pep, for your diaries to turn into that guy where he's got the whole diagram up on the wall and he's trying to explain exactly how he's going to do it.
He's like,
yeah.
You know what though, Pep? I mean, you scooped up a bunch of territories doing that. Like you and I were kind of going back and forth a bit on. We were both in a position to attempt to wipe them out. And I sat back and was like, go for it. But I should have maybe pushed to get some of those territories myself.
You should have. There was actually
specialists.
And the specialists. Because you got a hypnotist later, too.
I did, yes. Yeah.
And, it's actually really funny that you mentioned that, because there was one point in the video diaries where I'm online and I'm almost panicking in the video. And I'm like, okay, I've timed everything out, and this is perfect. Except if Steele does this. If Steele does this and he launches this, it's going to be ruined and I won't get the specialist. So I'm going to message Steele real quick and just say, listen, I know you were going to send an attack to help me, but just hold off. I think I got this, and that way you don't have to lose anything. And I saw you planning the attack. I saw little dings happening. Then I saw you take them away and send me a message. I think in the diary it even shows you sending me the message. I'm just like, yes! Everything's going to be fine now.
So
So,
Christie,